Daniel clenched his fists, his jaw tight. Every word spoken against her burned in his chest, but he held his ground, waiting for her to speak again. Illyra's cane trembled under her hand, but her voice only grew stronger. Perhaps you think me blind. Perhaps you think me weak. But listen well. I may walk with weakness, but my choice is my strength. And I choose him. The chamber froze. Her words echoed against the stone walls, silencing even her cruelest critics. For a moment she stood alone in the center, a fragile figure with trembling limbs, but her eyes blazed like fire. Daniel felt pride swell in his chest. He had seen her strength before, but never like this. She was no longer the quiet, forgotten princess. She was standing against her entire world. The council leader's face twisted with fury. You dare defy us? You dare claim such a union? I do, Illyra answered. The king's voice thundered across the hall. Then you are no daughter of mine. Illyra's breath caught, pain flashing across her face. For a heartbeat, Daniel thought she would crumble, but instead she stood taller, clutching her cane like a banner. Then so be it, she said. The nobles gasped again. Some sneered in disgust, others whispered in awe, but none could deny what they had witnessed. The broken princess, the forgotten child, had spoken words that shook the throne itself. Daniel could no longer stay silent. He stepped forward, leaving the line of guards, his boots echoing against the marble. If she chooses me, he said, his voice strong, then I will stand with her. I will not abandon her no matter what you decree. The hall erupted again in outrage. Cries of insult and blasphemy rang out. But through the storm of voices, Illyra looked at Daniel, and for the first time in her life, she did not feel alone in her defiance. She whispered, barely loud enough for him to hear, "Thank you." And in that moment, even as the court burned with fury, Daniel knew something unshakable. Together they would face whatever came next. The throne room had never been so loud. Nobles shouted, their jeweled hands waving in anger. Some demanded that Daniel be executed on the spot. Others called for Illyra to be locked away, hidden forever so her shame could not spread. The air itself seemed to burn with rage and hatred. But in the center of the chaos stood two figures, Princess Illyra, leaning on her cane, and Daniel, the human soldier who dared to stand beside her. The council leader raised his voice above the noise. This is unacceptable. A human cannot share blood with the royal house of Vera. Soldiers, step aside now, and perhaps we will show mercy. All eyes turned to Daniel. He felt the weight of 100 stares, the crushing presence of kings and queens, generals, and lords. A lesser man might have bowed, begged for forgiveness. But Daniel did not move. Instead, he looked at Illyra. Her silver eyes trembled with fear, but also with something stronger, hope. She believed in him, and that belief gave him courage. He lifted his head, his voice steady. No. The word cut through the noise like a blade. Silence fell, thick and heavy. The council leader's face twisted. No. Daniel stepped forward, his shoulders squared. I will not step aside. You call me nothing but a soldier, but to her, I am not nothing. To her, I am worth standing for, and if she chooses me, then I will stand for her until my last breath. Gasps filled the chamber. Some nobles shouted in outrage, others whispered in disbelief. The king's voice thundered again. You are a fool. Do you not see what you are risking? You shame not only her, but your own people. Do you think the humans will protect you after this? Daniel's jaw tightened. I don't care if they protect me. I don't care if the galaxy turns against me. I care about her. He pointed toward Illyra, his voice rising with passion. She is stronger than any of you give her credit for, and if she chooses me, then she deserves the chance to live that choice. Not to be silenced, not to be hidden, not to be thrown away like a broken tool. A murmur spread through the crowd. Even those who despised him could not deny the fire. In his words, Illyra's hand trembled, gripping her cane tighter. She felt her chest ache with emotion. No one had ever spoken for her like this, not even she herself until recently. But Daniel, a man from another world, spoke as if her life was worth fighting for. The queen's voice was cold and sharp. "You are nothing but a farmer's son, a common soldier. Do you think you are worthy of her?" Daniel looked directly at her, unflinching. "Worth is not measured by titles or wealth. Worth is measured by loyalty, by love, by the strength to stand when no one else will, and by that measure I am worthy." The hall fell quiet again. Some nobles lowered their eyes, unable to meet the human's gaze. For the first time, doubt stirred in their hearts, but not everyone was moved. The council leader slammed his staff against the floor. "This is rebellion. This is an insult to the crown. If the princess continues this madness, she will be cast out. And you, human, you will die." Daniel did not falter. He turned to Illyra, his voice softer now but just as firm. "If they cast you out, then I'll walk beside you. If they strip your crown, then I'll be your crown. If they kill me—" He paused, eyes never leaving hers. "Then at least I'll die knowing I stood for something that mattered." Illyra's vision blurred with tears. She could barely breathe, her heart too full. The hall around her faded. The voices, the glares, the threats. All she could see was Daniel, the man who stood against an empire for her. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "They will never forgive us." Daniel smiled faintly, the fire in his eyes never dimming. "Then, let them hate us. As long as I have you, I don't need their forgiveness." The words struck her soul like lightning. For the first time in her life, she did not feel broken. She did not feel weak. With Daniel beside her, she felt unstoppable. The nobles might rage. The court might curse her name. But Illyra knew this truth. She was not alone anymore. And no storm of rejection, no threat of exile, could take that away. The hall was frozen in silence. Every noble, every guard, every servant seemed to be holding their breath. The human soldier had spoken boldly, but now all eyes turned to the one who mattered most, the disabled princess, Illyra. For a moment, she could not move. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. The weight of centuries of tradition pressed down on her shoulders. She was supposed to bow her head, to apologize, to accept the shame given to her. That was what the council expected. That was what her parents demanded. But when she looked at Daniel, she felt something different. His eyes were steady, fierce, filled with a love that gave her strength. Illyra slowly stepped forward, her cane clicking against the marble floor. Every step echoed, filling the silence like a drumbeat. She passed by Daniel, and for a heartbeat, he thought she might surrender, might choose safety over him. But then she turned to face the council. Her voice was soft at first, but it carried through the chamber. "You call me weak. You call me broken. You think because my body is not like yours I am unworthy." She paused, her silver eyes burning. "But I am not broken. I am not less. I am Illyra Vera, and I am your princess." Gasps rippled through the chamber. The council had never heard her speak with such fire. Her cane struck the floor once, sharp and loud. "And I choose him." She pointed to Daniel, her hand trembling but firm. "This human, this soldier, this man who has shown me more honor, more kindness, more courage than all of you who claim to love me." The hall erupted in chaos. Nobles shouted in disbelief. Some screamed curses, others called for her arrest. But Illyra did not back down. She lifted her chin, her voice rising above them all. "You fear him because he is different. You fear me because I am different. But you forget. It is difference that gives us strength. If a human can stand in this hall and show more heart than 1,000 nobles, then perhaps it is not I who shames this throne, but you who sit here in your pride and cruelty." Her words struck like arrows. Some nobles turned away, ashamed. Others shouted louder, desperate to silence her. But no one could stop her now. Daniel felt his chest ache with pride. She was shining brighter than any star, stronger than anyone, had ever allowed her to be. The king rose from his throne, his face red with fury. You would defy your blood? Your duty? You would throw away your crown for a soldier? Elira's voice did not tremble. I would not throw away my crown, I would redefine it. A crown is not metal, it is not gold, a crown is love, loyalty, sacrifice. He gives me all of that. And if that makes me unfit to rule, then perhaps your idea of ruling has always been wrong. The hall went dead silent. No one had ever spoken to the king this way, not even his highest generals. The queen whispered, her voice heavy with grief. You will be cast out, Elira. You will lose everything. Elira's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. I have already gained everything, because I have him. Daniel stepped to her side then, standing tall and unafraid. He reached out, and for the first time in public, she took his hand. Gasps filled the room as human skin touched alien royalty. But neither of them let go. They stood together in the center of the throne room, against an empire, against tradition, against the galaxy itself. And in that moment, Elira did not feel disabled. She did not feel small. She felt like a queen. The council leader's voice shook with rage. Then so be it. From this day you are no longer of the crown. You are no longer our princess. Elira's grip on Daniel's hand tightened. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. Then I will no longer be your princess, but I will always be his. One night the royal family hosted a grand banquet. Tables stretched across the hall heavy with food, music filling the air. The guests laughed, drank, and traded secrets behind jeweled fans. Elira sat at the edge of the gathering, as always. Her brothers and sisters shone brightly under the chandeliers, admired and praised. She, in her simple silver gown, was barely acknowledged, but Daniel was there, standing among the guards at the far wall. His eyes searched the room and, just for a moment, they found hers. He gave her the smallest nod, a silent reassurance. You are not alone. Her chest warmed at the thought. For the first time at such a banquet, she did not feel invisible, but cruelty has a way of finding the weak. As the music swelled, a drunken noble approached her. His smile was too wide, his words sharp with mockery. Ah, Princess Elira, he said loudly, drawing the attention of those nearby. You look radiant tonight. Truly, the cane is your finest accessory. The surrounding guests chuckled. Elira's fingers tightened on her cane, her throat closing. She tried to rise, to walk away, but the noble suddenly pushed her cane aside. She gasped as her balance broke. The hall seemed to tilt, her body falling, until strong arms caught her. Daniel. The music faltered, the laughter died. The human soldier held the princess steady, glaring at the noble with a fury that silenced the entire hall. Apologize, Daniel said, his voice low and dangerous. The noble sneered. Apologize? To her? She's nothing but... He never finished. Daniel's hand pressed against his chest, forcing him back a step. The look in the soldier's eyes was enough to make even the bravest pause. This woman is worth more than your entire fortune, Daniel growled. If you ever touch her again, you'll answer to me. Gasps echoed across the hall. A human soldier threatening a noble? It was unthinkable. Diplomats exchanged worried glances, wondering if this single act would break the fragile alliance between their worlds. But Elira, she could only stare at him. Her heart pounded wildly. No one had ever defended her like that. Not her family, not her tutors, not anyone. When the noble slunk away, humiliated, Daniel gently returned her cane. Are you hurt? He asked softly. She shook her head, her lips trembling. No, but I don't care what they think. Daniel interrupted. You deserve respect. Always. Her throat tightened with emotion. She lowered her gaze, trying to hide the tears gathering in her eyes. Why do you do this for me? She whispered. Daniel hesitated, then spoke the truth. Because you deserve better than the way they treat you. And if no one else will see that, then I will. That night, when Elira returned to her chambers, she could not sleep. She sat by the window, the alien moons painting her face in pale light. Her mind replayed the moment again and again, the way he caught her, the fire in his voice, the honesty in his words. For so long she had lived in silence, believing she was invisible, unwanted, broken. But Daniel saw her, and in the quiet of that night, she admitted something to herself. Her heart no longer beat in loneliness. Something new had taken root. Something fragile, but fierce. She was afraid to name it, but deep down she already knew. It was love. The days that followed the banquet changed everything. Princess Elira no longer walked with the same heavy silence she once carried. She still used her cane, still limped along the palace gardens, but her eyes seemed brighter. Because now, she was not alone. Daniel walked beside her, as though it was the most natural thing in the world. Every step they took together seemed to push back the shadows that had haunted her for years. Still, doubt lived in her heart. She knew what the nobles whispered when they thought she could not hear. She knew her family considered her weak, unworthy of true power. And yet, Daniel's words replayed in her mind every night. You deserve respect. Always. It was those words that gave her courage. One evening, as the suns of Vera dipped below the horizon, Elira asked Daniel to meet her by the reflecting pool. The water shimmered like liquid glass, glowing faintly under the alien moons. She stood there, cane in hand, her silver hair blowing in the wind. When Daniel approached, she looked at him with an intensity he had never seen before. I need to tell you something, she began. Her voice trembled, though her eyes were steady. Daniel frowned slightly, sensing the weight behind her words. What is it, princess? Don't call me that tonight, she said softly. Just call me Elira. He nodded. All right, Elira. For a long moment she was silent, staring at the glowing water. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. All my life I have been told I am broken. My brothers, my sisters, even my parents, they see me as less. They thought I would hide in the shadows forever. But I made a promise to myself long ago. A secret promise. Daniel listened quietly, his eyes never leaving hers. I swore that when the time came, I would not let them decide my future. I would not let them choose my chains. And so, I made my own plan. She turned toward him, her eyes glistening. From the moment you bowed to me that first night in the hall, I knew. I knew you were the one. Daniel blinked, taken aback. The one? Yes, she whispered. The one I would choose as my husband. His breath caught. For a heartbeat, the world seemed utterly still. Elira gripped her cane tightly, her voice breaking with emotion. I planned it, Daniel. From that night I decided I would not marry some cold noble who only wanted my name. I would not disappear into silence. I would choose someone who saw me, someone who defended me, someone who gave me hope. Daniel stared at her, stunned. He had thought she cared for him as a friend, perhaps more. But to hear her speak so openly, with such fierce honesty, shook him to his core. Elira, he began, his voice low. Why me? I'm just a soldier. I have no title, no wealth, nothing to give you. Her eyes softened, tears glimmering in the moonlight. You gave me something no crown or fortune ever could. You gave me back my worth. For a moment, silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of the water. Daniel's heart pounded. He had never considered marriage, never dreamed a princess, alien or otherwise, would speak such words to him. But when he looked at her, he saw no title, no disability. He saw only the woman who had slowly stolen his heart. Yet doubt gnawed at him. If you choose me, they will hate you for it, he warned. The court, your family, They will call it shame. They might even punish you. Elira lifted her chin, strength burning in her silver eyes. Let them. I have lived my whole life under their scorn. I am not afraid anymore. I would rather be hated with you than forgotten without you. Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to speak, to tell her what was growing inside him, but his voice faltered. She had just placed her future in his hands, and he felt the weight of it heavy on his soul. He finally managed to whisper, Elira, I don't know if I deserve that kind of faith. She stepped closer, her trembling hand brushing against his. Then let me be the one to decide what you deserve. Her touch was light, but it burned like fire. Daniel felt his resolve weaken, his walls collapse, and in that moment he understood. This was no fragile princess standing before him. This was a woman of unshakable will, one who had chosen him long before he even realized it. Under the silver moons of Vera, her secret was no longer hidden. She had always planned this. She had always chosen him, and now he had to choose what to do with her heart. The secret did not stay secret for long. In the palace, nothing ever did. Servants whispered, nobles spied, and before many suns had passed, rumors spread through the marble halls like wildfire. The broken princess has chosen a human. She dares to plan marriage with a soldier? She shames us all. By the time the royal court gathered again, the whispers had turned into open scorn. The nobles glared when Elira entered the hall leaning on her cane. Her brothers smirked as though eager to see her humiliated. Even her mother, the queen, sat stiff and cold upon the throne, refusing to meet her eyes. At the back of the chamber stood Daniel, a silent shadow among the guards. His heart pounded as he saw the tension in the air. He knew something was about to happen, something dangerous. The council leader rose, his robes glittering with silver threads. His voice was sharp as a blade. Princess Elira, he called. We have heard troubling reports. Tell us now, before your people, before your family, do you mean to bind yourself to a human soldier? The hall grew silent. Every eye turned to her. Elira's hands shook, but she did not lower her gaze. Slowly, she stepped forward, her cane tapping against the marble floor. Each step echoed loudly, as though marking her defiance. When she reached the center of the hall, she lifted her chin. Yes, she said clearly, I have chosen him. The silence broke like shattered glass. Voices erupted all at once. Impossible. Disgraceful. She mocks the crown itself. Her brothers laughed cruelly. Sister, do not be foolish. No man of our people will ever have you, and now you grasp at a human? Pathetic. Her father, the king, slammed his fist against the throne. Enough. Elira, you will end this madness at once. You will obey the will of your family. But Elira's voice cut through the chaos, trembling yet strong. I will not obey a will that erases me. I will not live in shadows anymore. Gasps rippled through the hall. No one had ever heard her speak so boldly. Her mother's eyes narrowed. You bring shame to this family. You think a soldier can protect you? You think his weak blood can strengthen our line? You are blind. The grand hall of the Veyran Palace glittered with light. Chandeliers of crystal hung from the ceilings. Alien music played softly in the background, and nobles of many worlds gathered to speak of trade, war, and alliances. Yet in the corner of that shining room, a young princess sat alone. Her name was Elira. She was the youngest daughter of the royal family of Vera. Beautiful in her own quiet way, with silver hair that glowed under the lights and eyes the color of the ocean, she could have been admired by all. But her people never saw her beauty. They only saw her cane, the uneven way she walked, the weakness in her leg. Among the Veyrans, perfection meant power. A body without flaw was a mark of strength, of purity. And so, to them, Elira was not a princess to be cherished. She was a shadow, a reminder of imperfection in a family that demanded flawless heirs. The nobles ignored her. Some turned their heads away when she limped past, as if her very presence embarrassed them. Others whispered cruel words behind jeweled hands, laughing at her when they thought she could not hear. Even her own family rarely spoke to her in public. They had long ago decided that she was not to be married into any powerful house, not to be given any important duty. She was only there because hiding her completely would be seen as weakness. So she sat quietly, shoulders drawn in, eyes lowered. She had grown used to being invisible, but one pair of eyes noticed her. Lieutenant Daniel Hayes stood among the human delegation. He was a soldier, not a diplomat. His duty was simple: escort the ambassador, guard the humans, and stay silent while the powerful spoke. Yet, as he scanned the room, his gaze lingered on the lonely figure in the corner. He saw not the crippled leg, not the cane. He saw the way her fingers gripped the armrest of her chair, as though holding herself together while the world tore her down with silence. He saw the sadness in her eyes, carefully hidden behind a mask of composure. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Hers widened, startled. Most people looked past her. Some looked at her with pity, others with disgust. But this human looked at her as if she mattered, as if she was not invisible. Quickly, Elira looked away, her cheeks warming. She told herself it meant nothing. No human could understand her life, her place in this cold court. And yet, something in that gaze stayed with her, like a spark in the dark. Daniel did not approach her that night. He had no right. He was only a soldier among nobles and kings. Still, when the banquet ended and the guests retired, his thoughts lingered on the princess who sat alone. The next day, fate decided their paths would cross again. Daniel had slipped away from the endless talks of trade disputes. Diplomacy was not his strength. He preferred the open air, the quiet places where a soldier could breathe without being reminded of politics. He found himself walking in the palace gardens where alien flowers glowed faintly in the morning sun, and there he saw her again. Princess Elira was trying to walk across the soft soil path. Her cane sank into the earth, making each step harder. Her jaw tightened, frustration clear on her face, but she refused to call for help. She had lived her life proving she was not weak, even as the world insisted she was. Without thinking, Daniel moved forward. "You'll hurt yourself on this ground," he said gently. She froze, startled that anyone had spoken to her. Slowly she turned, silver hair brushing against her cheek. Her voice was sharp, defensive. "Why help me, human? Do you pity me?" Daniel shook his head. "No. I just don't like seeing someone fight a battle alone." For a long moment she studied him. She had heard many lies before, but there was something in his tone, steady, honest, that reached past her defenses. At last she let him offer his arm. Together they walked the garden path. For the first time someone matched her pace. He did not rush ahead, nor did he sigh impatiently at her slowness. He simply walked with her as though there was no shame in being slow. It was a small act, a simple kindness. But to Princess Elira, it felt like the world had shifted, and that was the beginning of something neither of them yet understood. The palace gardens became their meeting place. What had started as an accident soon turned into something more, though neither of them spoke of it at first. Every day, Daniel found himself drifting toward the quiet corners of the palace where Princess Elira walked alone. And every day, she expected him, though she never admitted it. She told herself she was simply practicing her walking, strengthening her leg. But deep inside, she knew she was waiting for the human soldier who walked at her pace. At first, their conversations were short. "The roses here are beautiful," Daniel said once, noticing the strange glowing flowers. "They bloom only at night," Elira answered softly, surprised he had asked instead of staring at her limp. The next day, he asked again, "Do you always walk alone here?" "Yes," she replied. After a pause, she added, "No one wants to walk slow." Daniel smiled faintly. "Then I guess I was meant to." The words lingered in her heart far longer than he realized. Days passed, and slowly the walls Elira had built around herself began to crack. She had grown up hiding her pain, hiding her feelings, hiding even her small hopes. But Daniel was different. He never looked at her cane as if it defined her. He never flinched at her weakness. He spoke to her as though she was simply a person, not a broken princess, not a burden. One morning she finally asked the question that had haunted her since their first meeting. "Why do you keep helping me?" Daniel paused, looking at her, carefully. "Because I want to." "That is not an answer," she pressed. "Most people see me and think of pity. Are you different? Or do you just hide it well?" He stopped walking and faced her. His voice was calm but steady. "Pity is when you look at someone and only see their weakness. I don't see you that way, princess. I see someone who hasn't given up, even when everyone around her tries to make her feel less. That's not weakness. That's strength." The words struck her harder than she expected. She looked down quickly, blinking against the heat in her eyes. Her hands tightened around the cane. No one, not even her family, had ever spoken to her like that. "You speak as though you know my life," she whispered. "I don't," Daniel admitted. "But I know what it's like to be underestimated. Back on Earth, I was just a farmer's son. Nobody thought I'd be more than that. I had to fight to prove I belonged in the army, to prove I was worth something. So when I see you walking alone, I understand." Something in his honesty disarmed her. She realized that his kindness wasn't out of duty or formality. It came from his own struggles, his own scars. For the first time in years, Elira laughed softly. "A farmer's son walking with a forgotten princess. That sounds like the beginning of a strange tale." Daniel smiled. "Maybe the best tales are strange ones." But not everyone looked kindly on their growing friendship. One afternoon, as they returned from the gardens, a group of young nobles blocked their path. Their fine clothes shimmered with gold and their voices dripped with cruelty. "Look," one sneered. "The broken princess has found herself a human pet." Elira stiffened, her knuckles white on her cane. Daniel felt her tremble beside him. Another noble smirked. "Tell me, princess, does your soldier carry you when you grow too tired to limp?" How romantic. Their laughter echoed in the marble hallway. Elira's lips parted, but no words came. She was used to this mockery, but hearing it in front of Daniel made her heart twist painfully. She feared he would step away, embarrassed to be seen with her. Instead, Daniel moved before she could. He stepped between her and the nobles. His eyes hard, his voice sharp as steel. "Say another word," he warned, "and I'll make sure you regret it. Titles don't excuse cruelty." The nobles froze, shocked that a mere human dared speak to them that way. They muttered curses but quickly backed away, unwilling to risk the wrath of a soldier's fury. Elira stared at Daniel, her heart pounding. "You defended me," she said in disbelief once the hallway was empty. "Of course I did," Daniel replied. "Why wouldn't I?" Her throat tightened. She looked away, trying to hide the tears that burned in her eyes. No one in her life, had ever defended her so fiercely. Not her brothers, not her parents, not anyone in the court. For the first time, she felt seen. For the first time, she wasn't invisible. And in that moment, something inside Princess Elira began to change. She no longer saw Daniel as just a kind stranger. She began to see him as something more, something her heart had always longed for but never dared to believe she could have. The palace was full of whispers. Princess Elira had always been ignored, left to sit quietly in the shadows. But now, people noticed her, and not kindly. They noticed how she lingered in the gardens longer than before. They noticed the human soldier always at her side, steady and unbothered by her slow steps. To most of the Veyran nobles it was shameful. To them a princess with a limp was already a humiliation. To see her walk with a human, smiling softly, her silver eyes bright with life, it was almost unbearable. "The broken princess has grown bold," some whispered. "She hides behind a human pet," others sneered. They make a pitiful pair. Many laughed. Illyra heard their words. She always did. She had learned to wear silence like armor, pretending their voices could not cut her. But this time, their cruelty felt sharper. It was not only her they mocked. It was Daniel. That thought hurt her more than any insult thrown at her own body.